Well, in 1 Kings 18, verse 45, in a little while, the sky grew black with clouds and wind, and there was heavy rain. And Ahab rode, and he went to Jezreel, which was about 25 miles away. And then the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins, and he outran Ahab to Jezreel. Miracles always happen for a purpose. Miracles seldom just happen for no reason. And think about this. Why did Elijah go to Jezreel? Why didn't he just stay at Mount Carmel? Why didn't he go back home? Why did he go to Jezreel? And why did God empower him with the gift and the ability to be able to outrun that horse and that chariot and beat Ahab there? Something is going on. God does miracles for a reason. And it might just be to teach us and show us how much He loves us, show us His compassion. It might be to teach us a lesson. It might be to show His glory, but there's a reason for the miracles. But right after this huge miracle, there was a huge spiritual attack on Elijah. And it manifested itself in the natural. This spiritual attack happened in the natural. And this is sort of Satan's pattern of operation. When something awesome happens for God, something good happens for God, when we're on the mountain of God's glory, you can bet it'll be followed by the valley of spiritual warfare. It is going to happen. Write it down. That is going to happen. And so Ahab goes back and he tells his wife Jezebel all that had happened, how Elijah had killed all of the prophets of Baal and Ashtoreth. And then in 1 Kings 19, verse 2, then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and even more if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. Now think about it. If Elijah were still back on Mount Carmel, he wouldn't be getting this message. They didn't have telephones and texts and stuff like that. There was a reason that God brought him to Jezreel. And I think it was to undergo this spiritual attack. And maybe it was to teach us about how the spirit world works. But this spiritual attack manifested itself. Jezebel said, you'll be dead tomorrow, buddy. And Elijah was jolted. He was stunned. He was not ready for the attack. In 1 Peter 5:8, we think about that verse. Watch out, your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion whom he may devour. And that word devour means like to overwhelm. You could think of it like a mudslide coming down the mountain, and you're standing at the bottom of the mountain, to just be overwhelmed. And this is what happened to Elijah. He was overwhelmed with this both spiritual and physical attack. I mean, it happened in the natural, it happened in the physical world. And if we're not prepared mentally, we will lose focus. If we're not prepared mentally. And he was overcome by fear, and he was not thinking clearly, and he was not remembering the great things that God had just done that same day and in the days before that. Sometimes we forget the great things God has done for us. And so Elijah made a run for it. In verse 3, and he was afraid, and he arose, and he ran for his life, and he came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and he left his servants there. Now where is Beersheba? He's up here in Jezreel, and he goes down to Beersheba. That is about 60 miles straight line distance, so there's no telling how far it is when you go around all the curves and up and down the hills and things like that. And when he got to Beersheba, he went another day out into the wilderness. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He was scared. He was scared. And he came and he sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself. He prayed that he might die. He prayed to die. And he said, it is enough. Now, O Lord, take my life, for I am not better than my fathers. Sometimes we forget some key things. How many of you know that God loves His children? God loves His children. And God loves Elijah. And God loves you. God loves you. Don't ever forget that. And how much does he love you and me? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son to stand on the cross, to be on the cross for us. That's how much he loves us. Imagine God's hands on your face saying, I love you. Can you remember that? I love you. Can you remember that? You're going to go through some tough things on earth. Can you remember that I love you? Can you remember that? No matter what happens, and no matter how badly you've messed it up, I still love you. Can you remember that? So was God angry at Elijah for losing his focus? No way. Not even close. No way. Not at all.